The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
All right, guys, welcome to 2022. And this is the Habit-Based Lifestyle and Business Show. I am your host, Jesse Ewell. And today we're going to be talking about goals. And I thought, being that it's 2022, we're only 4 days into the year, I really wanted to break down what I see as a huge fundamental problem when it comes to goals and when it comes to hiring coaches, gurus, trainers, all these people that tell you it's all about the what and it's all about the why. There's some fundamental mistakes that I see people make when they hire a coach or they hire someone that's going to help them achieve something in their life. What I find a lot of times is they miss out on this fundamental mistake. And this was really one of the reasons that habit-based lifestyle was so important to me to create, was because I felt like every time I hired someone, it was like they knew what to do, they knew why to do it, but they didn't actually know how to break it down into a simple way of getting there. And so I would oftentimes be really confused about, hey, it's great you're telling me, what I should do or why I should do it, but you're not really telling me how. And there would always be the disconnection in that. And so if you're listening to this, it's, maybe you're someone who's struggled with like, hey, I feel like I know what I want. I feel like I know why I want it, but where I really struggle is breaking it down into how I'm actually going to pull this off. And so I'm going to give you the framework today that really helped me and helps me and helps many of the clients that I work with really get a deep understanding of what they want, or not what they want, but like how they actually are going to pull it off. Once they've figured out what they want and why they want it, then this is really the next place to go when it comes to that. Now, people will often say, listen, it's all about your what and why, or, there's the books, it's all about the why, which I think that is true to a certain place. It's all about the why for the why. It's all about the what for the what. But like after you figured those two things out, the real preparation and the real separation comes from really preparing for the season. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you is this, once you figure out the how, or at least the framework, it's going to get you about 40 to 70% of the way there. Now, some of you might think, well, that's not very much. Well, 40% is almost halfway. 70% is almost all the way there. Now, one thing that I found to be true is we may have a plan, but like your plan is going to be between that 40 to 70% accurate. How many times in your life have you, maybe set a goal and maybe you understand why, but the way that you got there wasn't exactly the way that you laid out. Now, even if that's true, and that's been true for me, what I found to be true is I'll take 40%, I'll take 70%, and in between there all day long over 0%. And what does that mean? That means that you can set the what, you can set the why, and I don't even know if that necessarily gets you 20% of the way there. And so I'm going to double, triple my odds by having an actual plan laid out. And so I'd rather be 40 to 70% of the way there than maybe only about 10, 20%. So So one thing that I found to be true is, I've hired a ton of business coaches over the last 7 years. Some have been amazing, or they've actually all been amazing to the extent of maybe they've taught me what to do as much as what not to do. And I've always learned something from them. So I really believe that even hiring the wrong coach or wrong mentor is better than not having one at all, because oftentimes they might teach you what not to do as much as what you need to do. And so I've had some amazing ones, and I've had some that have really taught me what not to do. But when it comes to planning and preparation, I found that a lot of coaches, they don't teach how to do it. They teach what to do and why to do it. And I also like to think of this a lot of times is that one of the best analogies that I heard is like, I've been going to church for probably 17 years. And I feel like for a long time, a lot of pastors will talk about, the importance of prayer, like the what to pray for and all these things and why you want to pray. But what I would always find is they never really taught you how to do it. And the how is the application, the action that we're going to take and actually doing it. And now that may sound really basic to a lot of you because you're like, well, just do it. But the best understanding is always to get a framework around what we're going to do. And so, for me is I typically won't do stuff unless, number one, I know what I'm working towards. I obviously know why. Those are where we start, but I have to have kind of a framework for me that makes sense on making it simple enough to do it. And so the analogy of prayer is so important because I think a lot of times we go to church and people talk about, hey, we need to pray. We need to do these things. Here's why, which I fully agree with, but where they lack is the how. And I find that happening in business also is people talk about what, the importance of maybe marketing, the importance of sales, the importance of fulfillment, and they talk about why it matters in your business, but they don't necessarily tell you how, even if you hire them as a coach. And so I remember getting into so many coaching programs as a business owner, and everybody would talk about the importance of marketing, sales, fulfillment, leadership, all these things and why it mattered, but they missed out on the strategy of, well, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis as a business owner? And they would have ideas, they would have separate things that you could do, but there was never an actual system of how to actually pull this off on a day-to-day basis, and the planning and preparation, the strategy of actually how to do that. Now, how to actually pull off this goal of marketing, or how to actually pull off this goal of selling someone, how to actually pull off this goal of fulfillment in business, and what does that look like from a practical standpoint on a day-to-day basis. And that's where, I want to really break this down today. So no matter if you have a goal of maybe prayer, for me last year, I will tell you this, that, for a long time, I really believe that working out was one of the greatest, habits and behavior changes of anything I've ever seen. Because it affects so many other areas of life. If I have more energy, if I feel better about myself, I have more confidence, if I get up and get moving, all of those things impact every area of my life. And I really believe that is one of the greatest things that we can do as a business owner every single day. But also last year, I really worked on praying because, I got the what, I got the why, but I really worked on the how when it came to prayer, and I really was able to upgrade my prayer life when it came to that. And so that's where I want to break this down for you guys, is to be able to take any goal that you have and be able to walk it through these 4 steps so that you can begin to really map out your why, or really map out your how for the year. So obviously, we always start with a goal. Whether your goal was to make $1 million, your goal was maybe to get closer to God, or maybe your goal was to lose 20 or 30 pounds this year, you have to always start with a goal. So one of the things that I do is I really start with a goal in the middle of a page. I circle it. And then if you guys have ever seen Mind Map, it's an app. You start drawing lines and circles outside of that. But the number one thing that I do once I've started with my goal is I say, what behaviors, what I need to change, what I need to upgrade or add into my life to be able to get to this goal. Now, one thing that we look at is we extend out, almost like one place. Okay. So these are the behaviors that I need to change. So if I was in business, the number one behavior I'd have to change if I was trying to increase my revenue would be obviously marketing. The other one would be obviously sales, increasing the number of sales and the sales amount. And then number 3 would be reselling on the back of a fulfillment. Those are really the 3 ways that I grow in revenue. Now, we could say, yes, you got to increase the amount of clients. Well, that comes from marketing. That comes from sales. And so really I would start extending out. I might need new employees. That might be a behavior I would have to change, or my leadership would have to change. Maybe, I would need to upgrade a coach or a mentor. Maybe I would need to hire on a couple new people, or maybe I would need to delegate and automate some of the things that I'm currently doing and let go of. And so really the same thing is what behaviors would I need to change and when I do these. So maybe starting your day off earlier, maybe it's working specifically on marketing tasks every single day for 30 minutes to an hour, or it's working on getting into sales conversations every single day, or maybe it's coming up with a new program on the back end of your existing program so that you can begin to upsell clients. And those are things that you start looking at as far as the behaviors. Now, what habits, what I need to add to pull this off. So imagine, maybe a behavior for prayer life is that you maybe avoid it like I did. I remember many times I would try to schedule it after my workout. And the one thing that I would find is I would kind of put it off and veer off in a different direction. But one thing that I found is when I started putting it in front of my workout as my buy-in to my workout, I would find myself putting it off less and less because I wanted to work out. And so I would really do anything to be able to do that. And so the behavior change that I started to make is I started to put the habits that I would avoid in front of the habits that I was doing consistently. I call that habit stacking inside of my program, but that made it to where I almost had a buy-in to my workout, which was prayer. Now that made it a habit. Once it was a habit, then it was kind of one of those things where it really started to change my life. Now, so I said working out was one of the things that I really believe was the best. Focusing on prayer in 2021 with myself and with my wife, I would say are probably the biggest things that really changed, that made a big impact. So I know a lot of you guys, you're focused on working out twice a day, for whatever, 75 days, 300 days, whatever you are doing. But I will really challenge you to start praying every day. That taking time to pray every day will have a greater impact than you working out a second time every single day. And here's why, is because prayer changes how you see how you see yourself, how you see your spouse, how you see your kids, how you see your life, and also just developing that relationship is a lot of times we see, we want to get from our spouse what we actually can get from God. And that's where I believe that this is able to change. And so I don't necessarily need a 6-pack to prove, who I am. God already says that. And the closer relationship I have with him, the less I need to work out more, the less that I need to see a kind of like an external change, because the internal change is really going to show up externally in a greater way. A lot of times we can change externally, and that covers up the changes that we need to make internally. And that's really why I believe prayer has such a powerful impact, and it cascades to so many other areas of my life. And think about it. if God's the CEO of my life, God's the CEO of my business, I can't just focus on the external things in my life, because the internal changes that I got to make are really the ones that have the biggest impact on other areas, even my business, even my health, and all these other things. If I listen to his voice, then I will have a greater impact on the other areas of my life. So once I have the behaviors, I start talking about what habits would I need to add to really pull this off. Now, most people think, what habits would I need to take away? Because, let's face it, when I start a diet, most people think, oh, I need to stop eating sugar. I need to stop, watching TV. So they think of habits as things that we need to subtract instead of things that we need to add in, because taking away a habit like sugar is great, but there's a void there. And if I don't fill that in with something, if I don't add a new habit to fill that in, I'm going to fall back into kind of that pit. And if you think of like, once we take away a habit, if it's good or bad, there's a void there. If we don't fill that back in with a new habit or replace it, it's not going to stick. And so I always look at habits, or what habits would I need to add to support the behaviors that I got to change, that I got to upgrade, that I got to add into my life. And that's number two. And so if it was about working out, if it was about losing weight, the habits that I would add are maybe eating a couple servings of vegetables a day. It would be, working out. It would be maybe going for a walk daily. It would be, maybe taking some supplements, whatever that is. But those are all habits that I could add versus just focusing on, taking away sugar, because I could take away sugar and not add anything back in there. And now I have no replacement. And so within about 2 or 3 days, the willpower goes away, and all my focus is I can't have sugar. And so I'm naturally going to get pulled back into that. And so really the same thing is what type of habits do you have when it comes to marketing? So are you communicating with people on a consistent basis? Are you meeting new people? Are you making phone calls? What kind of habits do I have when it comes to sales? Am I getting into sales conversations? Am I asking people to maybe buy my product and service on a day-to-day basis? Am I making a habit of someone being able to say no and building up the resilience to where no just gets me one step closer to a yes? And then what type of habits do I have when it comes to, reselling and painting a vision for my clients and where they want to go? And so those habits all have an impact. Now, the same thing is what habits would I need to add to change the behavior of prayer? Well, I would need to spend time, 2 to 3 minutes a day, maybe starting out in prayer. Maybe I don't have to make it such a big thing that I got to spend 10, 20 minutes. Maybe I just make a habit of opening the Bible and going to a verse in it. For a lot of people I know, starting off in Proverbs or Psalms and just reading it with the day of the week it is a great way to start, but it only really takes about 2 minutes to do that. Also journaling, you could pray, you could journal, and you could read the Bible all about 2 minutes each one and be done in about 6 minutes to 8 minutes, and start making that a habit every single day. And these are things that can start changing your behavior and how you're actually showing up, not only, spiritually, but also in your business. Now, the next thing are what are my non-negotiables? So what are things that I'm not going to negotiate on? So maybe if it was specifically for business or just any area of life, maybe my non-negotiable is I'm not going to skip a morning routine. I'm not going to show up to work anymore and not have worked on myself for at least an hour prior. And so here's the one thing that I see a lot of business owners do is they show up to work tired. They show up to work, waking up, 20, 30 minutes before, and they're not actually prepared. And they might just show up on a call. But the non-negotiables is I can't go to work unless I've done at least an hour of working on myself. And that would be number one. Working on all areas. So working on, okay, there's a fitness component of what you're doing. There's a spiritual component of what you're doing. There's a relational component of what you're doing. There's a financial component of what you're doing. And then there's a mental component of what you're doing. And really you're working on 4 to 5 areas of life for an hour, filling yourself up before you step in the day. That's one of the main non-negotiables I have, because, even if I work out and that was it, I'm still not prepared for the day. So really setting a standard of non-negotiables, like, maybe it's making, like, I have a 3-hour version of a morning routine, and then I have about a 2-hour version of a morning routine, and then I also have an hour. That means that at any specific day, I can do one of those 3 different variables when it comes to my habits, but those are my non-negotiables to make sure I do. My other non-negotiables as a business owner is I have to market. I have to be in sales conversations every single day. And I have to constantly be thinking of ways to upgrade, my program. And so I have to constantly look at ways to improve in my business. Now, the other piece of this is, what are the steps in order of importance? And I always think of 1 through 6. Once I have kind of my behaviors laid out, my habits laid out, I see kind of the bigger picture of things that I'm going to have to change in my business or in my life. And I really start listing them out in order of importance on what needs to happen first. And so I always start with number 1 and I go through till number 6. Once I have number 6, I go back to number 1 and I pretty much cross everything else off until I'm finished with number 1. And then I would move on to number 2, but I would really map this out, or what are the things that I got to get done in the first 30 days? What are the things that I got to get done in the next 30 days, 30 to 60? And what are the things that I got to get done in the 60 to 90 days? And so I reverse engineer that and then just focus on the number 1 thing that has to get done in the first 30 days. Because if I don't do that, I don't get to move on to number 2. Let me just review this. Start with your goal. That's the very first thing. Next thing is, what behaviors do you need to change, upgrade, or add into your life? Number 2 is, what habits would I need to add to actually pull off these behavior changes? Number 3, what are the non-negotiables? And then number 4, what are the steps in order of importance? Once I have everything laid out, what do I need to get done in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And then coming back to just focusing on number 1. This is really how I set up with all of our clients inside a habit-based lifestyle. We strategically map this out and break it down. And again, this is for a kind of like a 90-day challenge or maybe even a year challenge, but we scale it back to the first 90 days and then we scale it back to the first 30. So if you guys have any questions on this, feel free to reach out, Jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. If you're watching this live, hashtag live, ask any questions you have. Maybe you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, and I'd love to get into a conversation with you about this. So you guys have a great Tuesday and Happy New Year.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse